The lights flickered and the server racks whispered their own code. I was alone in the cavernous, windowless server farm on the 3rd floor of the downtown data center, the rain pounding the concrete roof like a drum. My shift started at 2200 hours, as usual, and the storm had already been brewing for hours, turning the city's neon into a smear of gray. I had a habit of checking the temperature sensors first. They read 22 degrees Celsius, perfectly normal, but the humidity gauge was stuck at 45%, a number I'd never seen stay that steady for more than a few minutes. At 22:13, I logged the first anomaly. A single rack, Unit 3B, reported a CPU temperature of 73 degrees Celsius, 5 degrees higher than its baseline. I wrote a note in the ticketing system and moved on, because in a place with 1,000 machines, a few outliers were expected. The hallway lights hummed low, and the only sound was the distant rumble of thunder echoing through the concrete walls. I could taste the stale coffee from my thermos, its bitterness a reminder that I hadn't taken a break since 21:45. By 22:27, the power grid flickered. A low-frequency whine rose from the UPS units, and the backup generators kicked in with a clank that vibrated the floor. The main breakers clicked, and the overhead fluorescence dimmed to a sickly amber. I checked the status board. Every server showed green, except for 3B, which now glowed orange. I ran a diagnostic, but the interface froze. The cursor stuck on the last line of output. Process halted at 0x0A3F. The screen stared back at me, a black rectangle framed by a thin, flickering border. I tried to reboot the rack remotely, but the command never left the console. I pressed the physical reset button, feeling the cold metal under my fingertips, and heard a faint click from inside the chassis. The rack shivered, as if something inside had shifted. The temperature spiked again, this time to 84 degrees Celsius, and the fans whirred louder, like a desperate gasp. I logged the second anomaly and called the on-call supervisor, but the line was dead. The only thing that answered was the echo of my own voice, slightly delayed, as if the speaker was far away. At 22:45, the storm reached its peak. Lightning lit the hallway for a split second, revealing the rows of servers like silent sentinels. In that flash, I thought I saw a faint outline of a figure standing between two racks, its shape indistinct, almost like a shadow formed by the flickering lights. I blinked, and it was gone. My heart raced, but I told myself it was a trick of the eyes, perhaps the reflections on the polished floor. Midway through my shift, around 23:02, the monitoring software displayed an entry that made my skin crawl. User, admin action, access secure logs at 22:58. IP, 127001. Note, initiated self-deletion protocol. I was the only admin logged in, and I had not initiated any self-deletion. I scrolled back through the log history, and the entries before that were normal system checks, backup completions, a routine reboot. The line after the mysterious entry read, "Process terminated unexpectedly. No further data recorded." The timestamp on the entry matched the moment the lights had dimmed. I stood up, feeling the vibration of the floor under my boots, and walked toward the source of the log. The aisle between racks 3A and 3B seemed to stretch longer than it should have. I could hear a faint tapping, like a keystroke, but the sound was irregular, as if someone, or something, was struggling to type on a broken keyboard. When I reached rack 3B, the front panel was ajar, a thin line of darkness spilling out. I leaned in and the tapping stopped. Inside the chassis, among the tangled cables, a small, black object lay on the motherboard. It resembled a USB drive, but its surface was etched with a series of numbers that matched the server's serial code. As I reached for it, a cold draft brushed the back of my neck, though the room was sealed. The drive pulsed faintly, emitting a low hum that synced with the distant thunder. I pulled it out, and the screen on the rack flickered to a single line of text. "You are not offline." The realization hit me like a wave. The storm had not just knocked out the power, it had opened a conduit. The data center's own redundancy, designed to keep the servers alive, was now feeding something else. The drive I held was a physical manifestation of the log entry, a placeholder for a process that should never have existed. I pocketed it, intending to hand it over to the security team in the morning, but the lights surged back to full brightness, and the UPS alarms sang their normal tones. When the sunrise finally broke through the clouds, the building's management greeted me with a cheerful, "Great job keeping everything up." I handed over the drive, and the supervisor frowned. "We don't have any external drives in inventory," he said, turning it over. The etched numbers glowed faintly, as if reacting to his touch. He placed it in a locked drawer and turned away. That night, as I drove home, the rain had left the streets slick and reflective. My car's GPS displayed the usual route, but a glitch made the street names blur into a single word: server. I arrived at my apartment, turned off the lights, and lay in bed listening to the distant hum of my own refrigerator. At 3:14, my phone buzzed with a new notification. "Process initiated. Self-deletion complete." I stared at the screen, heart pounding, and realized the drive was still connected. Somewhere, some system was still listening. The final line of the notification read, "Did you ever really leave the server room?"